Straw Hut Media.
Welcome to Only Murders in the Building, Reddit Talk with Only Murders in the podcast, and the writers of the episode for Season 2, Episode 7.
You know, maybe a little recap of this week's episode of the pod and then who your guesses were.
Yes, I always like to start off with the guests.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, this was an episode where a lot of the action took place at Coney Island. So I picked Alice this week, and it's kind of tied into that. So we know that they saw the person who they found, first of all, the Coney Island employee ID badge. So that led them to Coney Island in the first place. And then they saw the figure. I think that could be Alice. And obviously, she is no stranger to dressing up in disguise. We've seen her dressed up as Mabel. I feel like she could have been using the empty Coney Island amusement park as something to do for an art project. I think that would be something that she would be into. So my pick this week is Alice.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not 100% confident on that, but that's who I'm working with.
There's a lot of talk about man hands on the subreddit.
Man hands?
Yeah, because we see the one hand of glitter guy or gal, and a lot of people are sleuthing the hand.
Sleuthing hand.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're sleuthing the hand. A lot of people are saying Marv or the waiter, and his name just escaped me.
Ivan,
thank you.
Ivan seems to be getting back into the conversation again.
Yeah.
Marv seemed to be a popular person last week for sure.
Hello.
Well, hello.
Oh, yeah, people heard me.
Yes, you sound great, and I am so loving your Reddit handle.
Thank you. I definitely
Did you create it just for this talk?
Yes.
Was Gut Milk Zero taken?
I have a whole sort of branding strategy planned, and I prefer to release them one at a time. So it's going to be keto first, and then low calorie, and then we're going to be gluten conscious. It's going to be a whole thing.
I mean, I love the introduction of the gut milk fizz.
It's a whole branding opportunity. You're
killing it. LaCroix's going to be knocking on your door soon. Well, welcome to Reddit, Stephen and Ben. You are on the dedicated subreddit for Only Murders in the Building. We've had some of your coworkers on for a couple of talks the last few weeks, and we have just loved getting to know all of the writers, get to know the process a little bit more, and just have you all come through. It's just been a real treat.
Oh, thanks for having
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We usually start because we've talked to a few writers, and they've mentioned that they do come onto this sub from time to time to sleuth what the community is saying, seeing if there's any clues that people are globbing onto, and of course dispelling any rumors within the writers' room.
Get a feeling for what's out there.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Stephen and Ben? Do you use Reddit in that way as well?
I think last year I was really trying hard to stay off the internet. If people loved the show, if they hated the show, I was just not going to engage. But then some people were saying that they're saying nice things about you on the internet for episode 107. And that's all you need to tell me to have me jump in there and scroll for hours and hours, just soaking up all the praise.
I'm a pretty dedicated Luddite, so this is actually my first time using Reddit in my entire life. How do you like that?
Right now.
Right this minute.
Gosh, yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation that we can embark on, but this is so exciting.
I know. Well, I'm out here in my cabin in Montana, building my Unabomber materials. And,
working on the manifesto.
Yeah, I got my manifesto going, and so it's
good for you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing glimpses of your manifesto in the form of a TV show that a lot of people watch and love.
No problem.
We usually also start with a PSA for those that are new to Reddit Talk. Welcome. This is our new-ish audio feature. If you'd like to ask questions for any of the esteemed guests today, hit the hand icon to raise your hand, and we will bring you up on stage to ask your question live. Alternatively, we are checking the comments throughout the entirety of the show. So if you want to drop any questions, comments in there, feel free. They will be seen. Which leads us to our first question from the comments from, Aggie Buon, I'll say. They ask, was Theo's signing of, quote, a lot of deaf people don't get to write shows, a meta self-ironic line, and who suggested its inclusion?
Markley?
Yeah, I think I can't remember who decided or who pitched that first, but it was in an early draft, if I recall. I think we were both, we had been very cognizant of like sort of the, like how much can a deaf person actually glean when reading lips, right? Because it was such an important component of the storytelling in the first season. So I think we just wanted to sort of draw some attention to that and pay a little service to sort of the idea that there are two hearing writers working on this. And then sort of the larger element of who gets to tell stories and all that good stuff. Is that fair, Ben?
Yeah, and I think early on when we were talking about Theo, we had like some sketchings of him as someone was aware that he's deaf but doesn't consider it a disability at all. And this episode was a little slower and less sort of like hermetic than season 1. So we wanted to sort of get a chance to glimpse his views about how the world sees deafness a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's always challenging because Ben and I are both novelists. And so like we're used to working on a huge canvas, right? And so, when we're talking about Theo and his backstory, we're coming up with this like elaborate 500-page novel worth of material. And that obviously has to be translated into a 30-minute episode of television. So just looking for those little places to get in his personality and get into his character, I think was very important.
Amazing. There is a lot of love for Theo this week on the sub. Some people are shipping him and Mabel. Yeah. They're like, they have good chemistry. Maybe there's something there. But a lot of people also just loving his story arc and seeing him again. And also a lot of people talking about the reading of lips and just like the communication aspect between him and Mabel. But thank you so much for that. I will try to do my best again for both of you to a lot of people try to get some extra intel from you, so I'll do my best to try to keep that to a minimum here.
I have a quick question for Steven and Ben. It's just a quick one. Is Theo still living in the Arconia, or does he have his own apartment?
Aha.
The one that he took people back to.
Yeah, Ben, you go. You do this.
Theo doesn't live at the Arconia. I think his dad got him an apartment in a separate building, maybe in his early 20s as a sign of independence, but also as a way of yielding power over him. He's often at his dad's apartment, and he grew up in the Arconia, but he does not live at the Arconia.
Oh, okay. He doesn't live with his father. Okay.
Markley, is that fair?
No, it's just funny because this was quite a point of discussion.
Oh.
When we were talking. I think we talked about this for like a whole day at one point. So.
Yeah, when they showed his apartment, I'm like, I don't think that's the Arconia.
And on the page, I think it comes from both of us being novelists, but we really had like different images of what Theo's living space looked like. Like dingy, sort of like at the end of the subway line, just leaking pots everywhere. But it's still a gorgeous Only Murders in the Building living space.
Yeah,
that's super nice.
Yeah, that's Only Murders in the Building's idea of a crappy New York apartment. Yeah.
And he had a really nice headboard. I remember that.
And I saw he had the rowing machine. I was like, okay, Theo staying fit.
I actually love that. I love that. Like, I don't want to pull at any threads, but there was one thing that some people noted in episode 107. How did Theo subdue both Mabel and Oliver? He's not that burly of a person. So we want to just, let the world know that Theo keeps fit.
See, I love that that call out. It's like it's all explained eventually.
There's an acknowledgement.
Yes. he stays fit on the rowing machine, on the erg. I mean, speaking of a very small detail that of course we all loved seeing here is when Theo showed Mabel the video of him stabbing glitter person, we're not gonna say guy or gal, on the subway, it looks like it was the Reddit interface that the video was on.
Oh.
This is really waiting for a question mark. I would say that was maybe us paying, or like the show's many cogs on the design side of things, paying homage, however you pronounce that word, to the community of people who made this show by talking about it so much and taking it to heart.
So wonderful.
A nice little wink to them.
It was a wonderful wink. And, you have to freeze frame it, but truth be told, a lot of hearts coming up in the audience here. Throw up any emojis for that little Reddit call out there. But we had to freeze frame it, but people definitely caught it. So thank you for that.
They see you, they hear you.
Yeah, exactly. And our next question comes from Princess Peach 9, who has a little bit of flair of Ollie Mabel. What was your favorite scene to write, or that you are really happy with how it turned out this episode?
I think the interactions between Mabel and Theo were sort of obviously the core of the episode, and I got to go on set for it. Ben only showed up one day, just for all you out there.
All right, easy. I had a job. I
love it.
Oh, job.
He's not winning any attendance awards anytime soon.
No, it's like watching those two actors sort of learn from each other and interact, and seeing that experience between Selena and Joey was pretty amazing. So I very much enjoyed that.
And since we're talking out of school, I will just say that Markley spent like 3 weeks on set, so he became really good friends with Selena and Joey and Steve and Martin. And the first time I sort of had to shake hands with Selena Gomez on set, I was just like back to being in high school. I love your music. Isn't this cool? We're at the Arconia.
Hi, I'm Selena. I mean,
if I could take away nothing, like if I only get one pleasurable experience out of 2 years of work out only immersed in the building, it was watching Ben Philippe interact with Selena Gomez for the first time. That was a truly special moment in my life.
You'll have to videotape that next time.
So glad there's no videotape of it. No, I think my favorite scene to write was probably like the early interactions between Mabel and Theo, when she's still very angry at him, and she sort of has a lot of misconceptions about him, and he's sort of just showing that he is a good person. And there are little bits in there like him confirming that she did stab someone by being like so blunt. And she makes a joke about him, like that he should be a trauma counselor. That was a fun little moment.
I know that it's a hard question. It's like choosing between your children, but you both did a phenomenal job. So thank you. The next question comes from Nikki DS. Did you write the finale for season 1 knowing that there would be a season 2? Also, same question for the season 2 finale. And a little, we love Theo and Mabel. I'm telling you, there are a lot of people shipping those two right now.
Yes.
What's the word shipping?
Yeah, what's that mean?
Oh,
I've never heard that.
Oh my God, Markley, come on. That's for you sound like someone who didn't grow up writing fan fiction.
So Ben and I are here. Okay, it's basically like you're shipping them as a couple. So like you're pairing them up. You're hoping that they're gonna end up together. You're putting your eggs in that basket, so to speak. Did I do that okay, Ben?
Yeah, I always took it as short for relationship. You know, you're Spike and Buffy and Angel.
Yes.
I was a very cool teenager.
Totally. More mainstream of Ross and Rachel, whatever it might be.
Has anyone combined their names like a Brangelina kind of thing, like Mabio?
I think it would be
Theobald.
Matteo.
Evil. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Which one?
Matteo.
But curious about the sorry, I totally, that was a little detour there. But about the question of, do you write these story arcs with the finales in mind for the next season? And if you're in that situation now, knowing that you guys got greenlit for season 3, which congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I guess the answer to that is not really. Like we're sort of always playing with the elements we set up, but I think there's, especially this season, there was a lot of discussion about how all these elements we put in the air would play out. I think that is sort of some of the fun of it is we have to connect everything. It's like, as in the episode, this enormous puzzle, and just sort of seeing how it all fits together ourselves before we move forward.
Flipping the pieces, as it were.
Listen, I didn't want to be too cute about it, but I was.
I'm here for that.
Yeah, I think there's an element of it that sort of you're writing the season to be self-contained, but it's also like it could be season 17. That's sort of the energy you have to bring into the story as you're breaking it. It's tricky.
You guys are doing a wonderful job, though. So
Definitely.
wonderful. Speaking of flipping the pieces, broad presentation 9, I apologize. I'm going to combine your two comments a little bit, but could you all talk a little bit about the metaphorical puzzle and where it came from and how that came to be?
I think it came from when we were talking about sort of Mabel's mind or her state of mind this season, and she's been taking it on the chin quite a bit, and there's a central sort of hole in her memory, which is what happened to Bunny. Like Bunny fell into her arms, she was bleeding, and Mabel, I think part of Mabel knows that she is capable of stabbing someone. So we kind of wanted to find a way of visualizing it into a literal puzzle piece, and that's sort of what ends up happening in this episode. And I think the metaphor of the puzzle allowed her to put it back together for the audience, so that by the end we have like the missing piece, that hole in her memory.
Amazing. I thought it was a really cool visual for sure. And like just getting that backstory of Mabel, it was a really beautiful story arc, which actually leads to another question, which comes from Lodridge. They ask, do each of you have individual characters that are your babies for whom you and only you write the story / dialogue for?
It's way more collaborative than that. Like I feel like in any given episode, you're seeing something you suggested or like that flew out of your mouth, like pop up. And then in your own episode, it's like a bunch of other people's stuff is sort of corralled in. It's so like the work is so expansive and it goes through so many drafts that you don't really ever see yourself in exactly one character. But I think for Ben and I, obviously, you know, writing Theo has been an enormous, just like a lot of fun and very interesting. And we definitely have been, you know, like we like the idea of shipping Mabel and Theo. That's a great thing. We've thought of that before and talked about it, I'm sure. But yeah, we have enjoyed writing Theo and seeing how his character has evolved.
Yeah, I think everyone in the room has characters that their voices sort of like respond a little bit more to that specific character. Like they can be small characters. Like I really like Ursula in the building. Other people really like Lester. But yeah, for Markley and I, Theo's a good boy. I will say I also really enjoy writing Teddy.
I love it. And great use of the word shipping.
Thank you. I'm learning so much today.
It's very catchy.
Well, I'm curious too, because do you collaborate very much with James, the person that plays Theo, about, you know, how to incorporate some of those elements of being deaf into the story and making sure that they kind of stay true to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because neither of us could go to set for season 1 because of COVID, you know, he played a large role in sort of shaping how the character, you know, moved in the world, right? And how his interactions went. With this season, because we were on set, like Joey would often make suggestions or intimate details that would be difficult for a hearing person to think through, right? Just those little nuggets. And so it was great, like having him there to just sort of like walk you through it. The one thing I remember is there's a line when Selena's trying to sign something, and she signs like, "Thank you for stealing my fish." And I like spent hours and hours on, you know, like looking at ASL so I could like get something that would be funny, but that would actually like be a misguided sign that she was doing. And it took
close
forever
enough.
to like, what's that?
Something that's close enough to it.
Yeah, that could actually be. And like, I just like like sweated trying to find that like one thing. But I think stealing my fish is funny. So that's
No, it was so great. When that happened, I was actually thinking about you all. I was like, how did they land on that sign to make it close enough, but also funny?
no, yeah, it was really difficult. But listen, I have been on YouTube. That's a thing I've looked at. So.
Yes. I mean, similar with glitter, like being able to incorporate glitter and her being like, well, that was actually really fun.
Yeah, she liked that one.
Like having those moments to call out. It'd be very hard if you weren't well versed in ASL to be able to write and incorporate those moments. So kudos.
I was just curious, what's the joke with what's the steal my fish joke? Is that supposed to be similar to an actual sign word that she would say?
Yeah, so not like dead on, but like she's trying to say like thank you for helping me steal the files or
the
files and fish. But it's obviously something that doesn't end up in there. It just only matters to the insane writer who's like, this has to like resemble something she might try to say to Theo in that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it now. Thank you.
And Theo does kind of have that moment where he kind of just smiles and be like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Close enough. You tried.
And I think like James, Joey does such a great job of just adding so many layers to Theo. Like when we were first writing him, he was, technically the son of a grave robber. So there's something really sinister about that sort of character on paper. But Joey sort of adds a layer of softness to Theo that I think becomes really important to the character. He didn't really take full shape in my mind until we saw Theo on set and sort of his love for his father. Just the way he's very unassuming, just moving through the world, but also kind of like super confident. Like he doesn't mind breaking into really any building. That all came from Joey.
And he's very calm and collected when he's doing things. Mabel is kind of freaking out a little bit and he just calmed it down and took care of business.
And speaking of breaking into buildings, we learned a new tactic of how Theo broke into a building with the key that taught Mabel a little like moment there. Like,
right.
How do you all kind of incorporate those little moments as well? Because it's like, are you well versed in in key locking or
YouTube?
Yeah.
That actually happened on set that day where everybody was like, okay, so this door is just going to be wide open. And, we were talking through it and just sort of like, well, I mean, Theo knows how to break into stuff. So then giving Mabel a line that like acknowledges like, oh, that's like something just quick that acknowledges that she is used to breaking, that the theme of the show is just people breaking into every single door. Fine. So that, stuff like that just comes together in the moment was fun.
Also, James Caberly is one of the guests on the podcast this week, which is kind of fun to have a non-hearing person as a guest on a podcast, obviously with the help of an interpreter. But we also, I don't know if it's up yet, but the episode is on YouTube also for non-hearing folks to enjoy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kind of cool.
Check it out.
Yeah. Very cool. We'll try to post those links in the sub as well. That's a really awesome call out. Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to both listen and see all of that interaction.
Definitely.
Yeah. We have a bit of a quiet room today. If anyone does want to raise their hand to come on stage, don't be shy. Come on through, hit that hand icon, and we will bring you up.
And actually, I wanted to mention, Ben was texting me beforehand. If anybody has a question about his personal life, he's happy to dive.
Tax advice.
You're a very bad person.
Legal issues.
This just took a turn. I'm sure there's probably a better Brazos quote that could have been used for that, but
it's going in a whole different direction.
Yeah,
that's the one. I was blanking on Brazos' thing.
There it is.
There's a Brazos line.
I know. I'm curious too about writing there's that inceptionness of it all, writing a show within a show. Like, how do you keep continuity going with that? Because it is such a little subplot in there. How does the Brazos TV show make its way in the writer's room?
I think when we were trying to figure out what to do with Brazos, we were just looking at Variety that day, and there were like 17 reboots of old shows that were being announced. So I because our characters are at such a remove from the entertainment world while also being a part of it, we can sort of just have one reference here or there and hopefully paint a picture in the audience's mind of like, oh yeah, that's a reboot of a cop show from the 90s. I totally get what that is.
There'll be a Brazos origin story.
Absolutely.
But truly, yeah. Or, I mean, I would watch the reboot of, Charles being the uncle.
Who wants soup really bad? Someone please give him soup.
Let me see if there are any more questions here. Okay. I mean, I will ask this, Dazzling You 77, but I don't know if we're going to be able to answer it. Dazzling You 77 asks, can we have a small hint, please, please, please?
A hint to what?
I think a hint to anything. They were not specific, but I think that you can take that for what it is.
I mean, I worked so hard at my clue in the, as KK knows, my clue in the podcast.
In the podcast.
Yeah, I think you can share those for, folks who haven't heard the podcast yet. Probably a lot of them haven't. And we all know you're so good at clues, Steve.
Listen, I like a clue that's,
very succinct.
Yeah, I like a
amazing.
Clear. It's so hard to give clues though, because, when I hear people's clues on the podcast, I'm like, well, that either hit way too close, or it's so general as to be like, I think the killer was, a mammal.
It's got to be harder too by episode 7 because things are starting to wind down a little bit. So,
or ratchet up.
Or ratchet up.
I'm very thankful that we're only on audio because if you have any other tells, people aren't going to be analyzing your facial expressions in reaction to some of these questions.
Yeah, like pausing to see if our eyes dilate.
Exactly.
I can hear your heartbeat increasing.
Yeah, exactly. Zooming in on your brow. All right, we'll move on from that. But Nikki DS asks, did someone oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Nikki. I'm going to doctor this a little bit. Did any of the actors really surprise you with adding something new to their characters or something you didn't expect but was kind of great?
I think Ben's previous answer, James Caverly was just great. Especially, I think last year's episode was so focused on the plot outcome that there wasn't as much room for him to sort of maneuver within the confines of what his character had to do because it was so focused on that moment with Zoe. And this season, I just felt like he had so many playful moments. Like even when he's like yanking his teeth out with the fake pliers.
That was great.
It's just like he has like such a broad range, which was really a pleasure to watch.
I'm gonna go with a overlooked underdog, a man named Martin Short.
Oh, I've heard of him. Who's that?
He is just so good at making Oliver as amazing as Martin Short actually is, but his own distinct character. I think something that surprised me is how involved Martin is in sort of shaping the image of Oliver and sort of like what Oliver would do, what he wouldn't do. He's still extraordinarily funny. Like there are some riffs and some deleted scenes that, oh boy, he's just never off. But you see the difference between Martin Short and between Oliver Putnam. And yeah, he knows that character so well, which is weird for me as a writer because, you assume that, the writers know the characters best. But then the actors who've been living with them for like 2.5 years really just, they've imprinted on these characters in a really, really amazing way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I read Marty's book and it's like going through his career. It's like, yeah, this is somebody who's basically a legend, but, in some ways, like never had that monstrous hit, kind of like in the way that Steve has. But like, I feel like in this show, he is just like a total flamethrower in every scene, like he's always so funny. Every little thing he does is weird. He's just so talented. And, even when I know exactly the line that's coming, it can still crack me up, which is very impressive.
That's amazing.
He definitely puts a lot of thought into every line he speaks and every movement he makes.
Hand gesture, eyebrow raise for sure.
Something we learned from one of the writers or somebody when we talked to Martin Short last year for the podcast was that like he came up with this backstory that Oliver's obsessed with Timothée Chalamet. And everything he does is like, what would Timothée Chalamet do? What would Timothée Chalamet wear? And I just think that's so funny, and it makes me look at him and his choices in a different light. It's so good.
It all goes through that filter.
Yeah.
It's incredible, but it's also, I mean, we're learning that Oliver is kind of a child of the internet, like him and Mabel's meme exchange.
Yeah.
His love for Timothée Chalamet very much tracks with that, you know, internet culture, because he's a huge fixture of the internet.
I
feel like
that.
he's definitely on Reddit. There's any of our characters, like he's deep on Reddit.
I love that, and I remember
Martin is?
Oliver.
Oliver. Okay, I see.
I'd love to know what his screen name would be. That would be fun for the writers to come up with sometime.
Lodridge, feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. So I was just wondering, like, once you've determined who your killer is and you've got all that set up, how much of the writing goes into planting red herrings and making all the other characters look as suspicious as possible?
That's a really good question. I promise, Markley and I aren't being like silent and coy just to be silent and coy. It's just like, it's the episode 7 that like, oof, we're so close to being able to talk about these things openly that we don't want Hulu to literally kill us. I think we like to, when it comes to red herrings, we like to create characters and clues that point to potentially real killers. Like the idea is that if we were going to build a season around, oh boy, Mabel did it. It's all been Mabel's doing, and she's, you know, setting up the entire story. I think we would want that to track, so the red herrings end up feeling real. Does that make sense for you, Markley?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's this process in every mystery where, you know, the detective, quote unquote, in whatever capacity they are, is cycling through the characters, and the audience is, you know, along for the ride of that. So the audience is also sort of judging and dismissing and weighing and dismissing, and then somebody catches your eye and you're like, okay, I think it's this person. I have a thread with my friends back home in Ohio, and they're like constantly guessing about who did it. And I find that so interesting because like the theories you come up with and the ways in which like each individual sees the mystery is so interesting to me. But yeah, you know, it's every mystery is like sort of a weird balance you're trying to strike, because it all should lock in. It should all make sense when the final person's revealed, and hopefully in a way that's satisfying to everything that's come before it.
It's also a fun challenge, I would say, because our audience is so invested in the show. Like, once you have viewers who will take screenshots and zoom, you're not dealing with just like throwing sitcom gags at the wall anymore. So you have to sort of be aware that you're writing for very smart people.
Wow, what a suck up, man. Come on.
I'm sorry. Welcome to Reddit.
This
is new for you. That's what we do up here.
I know.
And shipping.
Not everyone, they think we're smart. No, thank you. And thank you, Lodridge, for your wonderful question. Well, with that said, the door's always open. Come back anytime. We would love to have you back.
Yes.
For episode 10, after episode 10 airs, and you can air all of your dirty laundry.
Unfiltered.
Unfiltered. So thank you so much for coming by. Thank you, KK, Straw Hut, Hannah, as always, for letting us do this. It's so much fun. We look forward to it every week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And listen to this week's episode of the podcast to
Only
hear
Murders
more
on.
from Steve and Ben. Plus, we also have Devine Joy Randolph, who plays Detective Williams, and James Caverly, who plays Theo. So it's a really, really good episode. So check it out. And you can watch it on YouTube either now or very, very soon.
And just to spread the joy around, episode 8 is one of my favorite things ever. So look forward to that one. I love that episode.
Oh my gosh.
So that'll be picking up where the blackout happens at the end of episode 7 then, right?
Yeah, it's a blackout episode.
Okay.
I don't know. I hope that's not a spoiler and I'm not fired, but we'll see. But yeah, it's Madeline George. She's a genius. I love her so much.
We'll have to keep watching.
Well, that is for sure going to be happening. But man, now it feels like it's going to be a really long, almost week. We're still on the the majority of the week here. But thank you so much again. Until next time, we'll be back hopefully next week. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and we will talk soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.